this past weekend. Okay, we got the audio going. Cutting this on. Just took my Afrin, so hopefully that's gonna help me breathe. Happy to be here. A little frustrating. I'm trying to quit smoking. We all die. Thank you for joining me, man. And I haven't been a smoker, but I just kind of started, really just kind of farting around with the habit. And cigarettes are crazy. I don't know what they put in cigarettes, cocaine maybe, but they are an enticing little treat, And you start thinking, they become the first thing you think of sometimes, cigarettes. They become the first thing that you think of if you're having a moment of difficulty or a moment of triumph. Instead of thinking, oh man, how do I solve this? How do I feel about this? How do I do anything? Instead, you have a cigarette. You just smoke that feeling out of your brain and out of your bloodstream with that cigarette smoke, And this is an age-old tradition, and I don't think it's bad long-term if you can use it in severe moderation. The problem is doing that. That's the hard thing. So I've done great with it over the years, flared up probably in the past year, the past few months I've been great. And then now it's really, I've fallen, just in the past 3 or 4 days, just fell back down that stairs. That carcinogen staircase. When you just banging your head and on each stair as you bounce down, emphysema, asthma, the black lung pop, getting your toes cut off. And the next thing you know, you're lying at the bottom of the staircase. You breathing through one of those, those gangster-ass throat holes, I mean, some of those throat holes get big. I've seen somebody I'm surprised a couple Ninja Turtles didn't pop out of it. This fella had a real little, almost like a big third nostril. He could take a hit off the whole world through his neck. But it's not healthy, when you have that. That kind of stuff isn't healthy. But, so today I've gone all day. I've had some cravings, if you'd have told me there was a hit of nicotine in my bloodstream, I would have dressed up like a vampire and damn bit myself. Okay, that's where I was at. But welcome, guys. I appreciate you being here with me this morning. I really do. Appreciate your time. This is Monday, August 21st, 2017. And as far as we know, and for most of us, this will be the only Monday, August 21st, 2017 that we ever have. Unless there are some time travelers out there. And, I like to start thinking about time travel, and I'm going to look into it. I'm going to do some Google research and then some real research, and just talk to friends and see maybe what they think about time travel. Are there time travelers here? How does that work? What's going on? What do they eat? What do they do? What do they do in their spare time? A lot of times you see these time traveling shows and people travel to time. They travel through time with a poignant purpose. They got something on their mind. They got a little bit of beef. They got that they have to, grill, but in a different time period. So you got them straight up people traveling, just trying to, cure meats, and by meats, I mean different issues that are going on. Maybe they got to travel back 100 years because they're helping with prohibition, or they got to travel back 70 years because they're helping, somebody took a gunshot wound and they got to step in the way of it or something. There's always a specific meat that they're heading back to grill, if you will. That's all metaphorical, that's hypothetical. There's a specific reason that they're traveling back in time, right? Well, I wonder, what do time travelers do when they're not being specific? What do they do when they're just kind of milling around? Do they, is it hard if you travel back in time because you don't have the customs and probably the dope future shit, the DFS that they have down the road? I don't know. But anyhow, you might be able to time travel today because it's Eclipse Day. People have been talking about it, right? It is a solar eclipse, And one of the things that's apparently amazing about this one is that this one is the best one since 1918 that you can see here in the United States. It's basically diagonal across the United States from Portland down, I want to say to Florida, but that's, just me taking the easiest way out of this question or out of this thought. But it's diagonal across the U.S. There's a lot of people apparently have descended upon Portland to see stuff go dark, And it's interesting, man, since 1918, and my father actually, so some of you guys know my father was born in 1910, so my father was 8 years old. I don't know if he saw the eclipse or not, if it was as big of a thing to them, but it's just interesting to think sometimes, like what your parents were doing when they were children. I always put my parents, or I always put adults, especially as you grow up, on this odd pedestal, on this special place. I mean, surely they have more knowledge, so you'll most of the time you'll accept that. But then you also put them in this other sort of realm of humanity and of experience. But then as you get older, it's interesting to try and think back what they were like as children. I mean, I think about my father in 1918. Maybe standing out there looking at the eclipse down in Nicaragua. I don't know if they got it. I don't think he came to America actually till he was 12 years old. But I do remember my dad telling me one time that two of his buddies, or two children in his neighborhood, got into a gunfight. Children, okay? Children got into a gunfight. And they went and it wasn't like gangbangers type of stuff. This was, some kid said, I'm going to get my gun. Some kid said, I'm going to get my daddy's gun. And they both went and got guns, 6 shooters. Then they came outside and they both shot at each other 6 times each, 12 times, and didn't hit each other, dude. That's, when you think about it, that is remarkable. That 2 kids, somewhere around the age of 10 or 11 years old or 12 years old, went and got 6 shooters, shot them off at each other, and didn't hit each other, man. That's truly beautiful when you think about it. But those were different times, man. That's maybe when you settled things like that, But it's the longest visible eclipse in America since 1918. I wonder if animals and plants, are they concerned? Like when the sun goes out, are dogs will cats give a fuck? Will ferns kind of start creeping on people or, getting irie? I'm just kind of wondering what else the rest of nature is doing. Because we have 50,000 people flying to Oregon to go witness this. I think I'm fine witnessing it from here. It'll hit us at 10:28 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's noon 28 a.m., noon 28 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to get out there and check it out, man. But yeah, I think about that sometimes, what our parents were like what they did when they were young, because they just did regular dumb kid shit like we did, Like they weren't our parents back then. They were just children when they were young. So they were just doing dumb shit, And my father probably lived in a time, I'm thinking, when over the summer or whatever, your buddies just died, And even a lot of times, like the 30s and stuff, the Dust Bowl, 20, people just died. You're like, people only lived to maybe 40 years old, 41? People died all the time, You'd be walking to church or something, somebody gets bit by a snake, dies, dude, before brunch. That's crazy, It's crazy to think that. How people just died all the time. Fever, snakes, spiders, attack animals, strangling. Strangling? Dude, come on. Can you even imagine the amount of strangling that was going on back then? You could leave for a school year, come back, half your class is missing. 2 people died of tetanus, 1 kid bitten by a wolf. Where's Lawrence? I don't know. He went to get some water, nobody ever saw him again. Do you want some of his old pants? I don't know. Let's play marbles before we probably die. Let's get a game of marbles in before the Lord comes and gets us. That's what I'm thinking. It probably said to be a wild universe back then, But the eclipse is here, man. It's a great time probably to steal some shit if you're thinking about stealing some shit. Great time to show somebody your dick or something, if you're into that kind of stuff, if you're into the dark arts. But it's a great time to kind of act out, I think. And I think it's nice also because we've been needing something in America that, especially in America, maybe in the world, that just shows us that Mother Nature is the boss. We're kind of hooked on us being the boss. We control it all. We're one fancy tidal wave from everybody, being out on the street, shanking each other out for cans of albacore fish. We are one long, thunderous earthquake away from people, setting traps in the park to try and get a pair of new shorts. That's where we're at. People don't realize that. I think we've gotten so caught up in ourselves. We're almost bored in America, in the way that we're starting to forget that we're humans in a way. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. We're starting to forget that we're humans. Like being human doesn't seem as important as like being right or being wrong or being selfish. Those things seem to have taken utmost importance. But I don't know, man. It's just wild, dude. So I'm glad that Mother Nature's coming. Just do a little bit of aerial work, a little bit of Cirque du Soleil, get out there and show her nuts off. Because Mother Nature's transgender, don't you know? Don't you know that? Mother Nature's transgender, dude. She's getting out there with them solar balls, and going to make them work. Make them do a little bit of sky work. So I'm excited to see that. Because we need something. We need something just to show us that, that we as people are more important. We need to have some empathy. There's not a lot of empathy these days. Everybody wants to be right. Why do we have to be right? That's so crazy. I can understand us wanting to be right, but having to be right is just a kind of a reach. But anyhow, what else is going on, man? Yeah, I was just thinking about that. What it was like when my father was young. He told me kids were real starving out in Nicaragua, and they would eat dirt. He said they had children that would eat dirt in this village where his family was doing some missionary work over there, or where they were doing some church work, and he'd see children eating dirt, but they would mold the dirt into food and then eat it, and that's pretty. It's interesting, it's kind of that's pretty gangster, It's like, yeah, anybody could just eat dirt, dude. But what about this dirt brulee I'm about to have? I respect people like that, people that have an imagination even in the toughest of times. Yeah, I hate to say that, but maybe that's wild, but I feel like we need something in Mother Nature or in the world. And I don't want to, I've thought about a war even, to be honest, I don't want to see loss of life and that sort of thing, but we need something that helps us all realize that we are on the same page, that we are humans here together. It's crazy to think that we are this speck in the middle of nowhere and we're fighting. Are we, what's wrong with us? That we're a speck in the middle of nowhere. We could be doing anything, and we're fighting, man. And we're not all fighting, but these days in America, there's a lot of boiling going on. A lot of people boiling. A lot of people, thinking, feeling. And I'll say one thing that's interesting, man. It's great almost. I like the fact that even though it's frustrating when I wake up or when I hear, I feel. I care. I have a point of view. Because for a long time, my generation, I'm 37 years, I'm an adult male. And for my generation, there was a 20-year span there where you got up, you didn't really care. Everybody just kind of went on with everything. There was no sides. There was no purpose. There was no vigor. You almost didn't even need your nutsack. I remember at the time, I remember thinking, do I even, I wish my nuts were detachable. I'd leave them here at the house. I'd hang them by that one winter hat that I wear once a year. Or that whistle. Everybody has a frickin' whistle on their dang coat rack. What are you doing with a stupid whistle? That creeps me out. When I go to your place, and if you got a hat rack, I'll look at it. I've always been a kind of an aficionado of hat racks and C-racks, coat racks. And I will, if you got a whistle hanging there, dude, but you're not a referee or something, shut it down. Shut it down, baby bear. You know? But I'm excited, I am hopeful because now people are feeling there's purpose. People want to say something. People want to feel something. I get up out of bed and I feel. Might be anger, but at least I'm feeling. At least I'm being reminded that I'm alive, Because we're quickly, in other ways, turning into zombies. And I feel like maybe that I don't want it to be, well, I love a natural disaster of some crazy sort. It might sound, it sounds a little crazy saying it. But if not, do we just taper off into oblivion with losing our feelings and becoming, just we're going to be the worst robots? We'll be eliminated and real robots will take over. I remember talking to my niece the other day. I'm talking about imagination. I said, use your imagination. And she goes, I don't think I have that on my phone. Like, what? I said, your imagination, it's an app that's in your head. But now it's like, man. So I just would love to be, because if you're in the trenches, if there's something on the line, if there's a war, there's a natural disaster, if the alien's coming, then you're going to have to team up with some. It's not going to matter, because then we're all going to be on the same side. We're going to realize that we're all humans. We're not just weirdos hiding behind Twitter, threatening each other and fighting. And I use Twitter, but GD, man, let's shut it down. That thing is ruining humanity. It's ruining it. It's just fury. I open Instagram. I'm kind of okay on Instagram. I feel, it's fun. You can see things, funny stuff. Twitter, ruins. It ruins, doesn't it? It's pretty interesting how different apps have almost become where we go to express certain feelings, But yeah, my niece thought imagination was an app. I don't think I have that on this phone. Using her mother's phone, my sister. Oh, what else? Jerry Lewis died. Rest in peace, Mr. Lewis. If you're not familiar with Jerry Lewis, which a lot of people aren't, a lot of younger people are not familiar with Jerry Lewis. And that's okay. He was older. I mean, the guy was in his 90s. I want to say he's 91 years old. And that's old, man. When you're 91, I mean, you probably have you'll take your shirt off and I bet there's kind of a dust or something in it. That's part of you. But visible always on you. Whatever, like you see old people with their ears a lot of times, just overgrown ears, like a family used to live in their ears and then their ears became haunted. And now they're not taking care of the yard anymore because the family moved out, I mean, sometimes you see old people have hair. I remember this one dude had a hair coming right off his nose, man. And it was probably 4 inches long. I mean, it was almost like like a cane pole. Like it just was trying to catch fish out of his mouth. I mean, this man had the longest nose hair I'd ever seen, And part of me often wonders if at night, after he brushed his teeth, he might pull that fine sucker down and floss his little beautiful little chest pieces in his mouth, floss those beautiful enamel pawns he's got. But yeah, when you get older, sometimes you don't know what's going on. They had a man in our neighborhood. He had a big hump on his back, This man named Big Dan, but they called him Moby Dan because of the hump. He real pale. It kept him out of the sun, and then his cousin would walk around usually, and his cousin was probably maybe 20 years younger, but his cousin would kind of they didn't have an umbrella, but he'd put like a tarp over him if he had to be outside, And Moby Dan, that's just what the kids kind of joked and called him, but he had this big old hump, and it just kept growing, and it got almost higher than his head, dude. I mean, if a bunch of pirates would have seen him, they probably would have damn thrown harpoons in him. He's big, too, fat, blubbery. Rubenesque, they called it at the time, Pretty happy man, though, overall. I remember that. But I know that if it was real bright out and he had to be outdoors, or if he was at a picnic, whatever, his cousin would kind of throw a tarp over him to keep the sun off of him. And I always thought that was pretty sentimental, when somebody in your family cared enough to cover you up with a tarp, or to, hold something over your head so that the sun or the elements didn't get you. I wish people in our neighborhood would have done that with their cars and stuff. A lot of rust, and I grew up really not in the rust belt, in the tetanus belt, where you needed a shot if you were planning on getting out and about into the world. You know that. But Jerry Lewis died, man. If you want to go back and watch some of his work, go watch the original Nutty Professor. And you can see at the time, Jerry Lewis they don't have artists like him anymore. They don't really allow you to function at that level of confidence. Very rarely. Like you'll see like a Neil Patrick Harris can do that when he's hosting like the Tony Awards or something, where he's singing, he's dancing, he's telling jokes. It's one to the next. But Jerry Lewis was like that constantly. And I think directors and programming on television used to allow the actors to move and breathe. Every shot wasn't just such a close-up and, okay, this line, and now this line, and this line, and this line. And the actors had chances to be more whimsical. Even on late-night shows, the talent had chances, I feel like, to be more whimsical. And he was as whimsical as they came, Jerry Lewis. You can watch him almost at any age. And it was extremely impressive, and I just wish that talent these days had that freedom. These days it's almost like the art caters. We got to get the episode moving so that it can get to the commercial break, so that, we'll keep the commercials happy. Whereas if you look at older stuff and older pictures, it looked like it was more just like the whole, whatever the production was, the show, the film, it could breathe a little bit. And maybe that was just Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis. Maybe it was just Jerry Lewis who they let him breathe, because he had that. They could rely on him that much. He had that much talent. But a very special man. Go check him out. What else happened this weekend, man? I went to the beach. Went to the beach out here in Santa Monica. I took a nap in the sunshine. Have you ever done that? Feels great when you start. Feels insane when you wake up. When you get home, part of your face, part of your body, half of your neck, half of your cheek. And I was out there at Santa Monica, where I was at the beach by the pier. And I'll tell you this, man, you get out in the water out there. I went out for a swim. Not the best idea, swimming by the pier. I didn't know that a lot of sewage runoff goes out there, right? First of all. So I kept thinking this water's sandy, right? There was sand in it for sure. Who knows what else was in it, man? And you're out there, and that's a violent ocean. They call it the Pacific, but I'll tell you this. That's a bait and switch on you. Because you get out there in that Pacific, and that thing is doing anything but acting pacified. All right, I'll say that. I was right by the pier, and I remember I got pushed out a little. I'm out there kind of surviving, because I don't swim as much as I kind of survive in the water. That's more how I, operate in the ocean. Not in pools. In pools, I can kind of handle myself. Shallow end, I'm a master of the shallow end. I'm Daniel Day-Lewis in the shallow end. My left foot, my right foot. I will drink your milkshake. You know what I'm saying? I'll do it all in the shallow end. I'm a fucking, I'm damn, Tanya Harding. Garibaldi or whoever, somebody that can dance, Jillian Huff. But I'll handle the shallow end. But when I get in the deep end, that's when things get squirrely for me, and in the ocean. So I'm out there. I'm kind of starting to drift a little bit. It's getting violent. The water's getting violent, And there's a lot of alcoholics out there, and there's two fellows pissing off the dock. Because that Santa Monica Pier is right there, the one you see in all the movies with the Ferris wheel, and kids are all geeked up and fired up. So I start drifting off into this area where you're not even allowed to swim in for some reason. I don't know why. I'm guessing because the ocean can push you up against the wooden parts of the pier, the things that are holding you up. They're just like big brown chopsticks. I don't know what they are. They're pieces of wood. You know what they are. Quit making me describe them. But yeah, I got pushed in. These two dudes are pissing right off of it. Alcoholics, I'm guessing alcoholics because everybody else is hanging out with their children and tending, to their kids and keeping sun out of each other's eyes. And these men are out there urinating, firing off things that they drinking previously the day before today and dripping that out of their wieners out into the water. And I'm getting spooked because I'm like getting pushed in that general direction, right? And then it gets closer and closer, and it's like, sometimes the ocean, you don't realize how powerful it is. So I literally have to like go underwater and swim under this, this urine that these boys are doing. And that's one of those moments too, where you just realize that, that Mother Nature's in control, that life isn't always going to go how you want it, So that was kind of like, if I don't see the solar eclipse tomorrow, having to hold my breath and swim under water that had other men's urine in it coming straight down. Just straight down, it was probably, the water I was hitting was probably at that point 4% urine. But when it's coming in hot like that, it's alarming. But anyway, swam under that. That was my eclipse. Swimming from regular water and then having to swim past in front of two adult men doing urine. So, but yeah, the beach was fun, man. I realized I don't mind the beach once I get there. I'm good. Half my face is really red today. Part of my back's a little squirreled up. But what I don't like is getting to the beach, parking. I don't like, some guy comes by my window, some Frenchman. He tells me I can have his parking spot. Then he goes and gets in his car for, I'm not joking, 12 minutes, dude. Sits there. I'm waiting, right? Other cars are passing me, getting other spots. It's an extremely small lot right there on Santa Monica. Finally, man, I look over there, dude. I go get a peep at the dude, right? Dude's resting, bro. Eyes closed, resting in his car. The fucking French, man. The fucking French, French me once, shame on me. You won't French me again. I'm not falling for this French shit. So, yeah, so that Jerry Lee Lewis, we got the Eclipse, dealt with the French. Yeah, I don't like just... I don't think that I really so much like dealing with the French. And then God has put a French taste in my mouth, man, and I don't like it. But what else occurred, man, this weekend? Not much, trying to stuff them cigarettes, And I probably only had, yesterday I think I had 3 or 4 cigarettes, probably 4. Because, a lot of times we'll say something and it's usually that's usually the amount that we don't want to admit to, so we'll try and cheat it. But I probably had 4 cigarettes yesterday. But man, they just make me feel squirreled up. They make me feel like, I don't know. They make me feel like there's just little mites in my body that aren't happy. That's what they make me feel. They make me feel like something's in me that's unhappy, and that's the drugs that's in them. They put drugs in cigarettes. What else? That's kind of it, man. I'm going to Vancouver next weekend, but not for comedy. I got my fantasy football league coming up. I'm so happy for fantasy football, man. I remember last year when feminism was at a crazy height, when there were, where men were disappearing off the streets and showing back up months later in wigs and, and that, just a dead look in their eyes. Women were ripping men off the streets and probably castrating them in basements or doing whatever they were doing, and football season showed up, and it was like the greatest thing that ever happened, just to have a little bit of manhood loose in the world. Like it was something it was okay to talk about when you were a man, just because, and I understand, you got to have some waves where, you have to have ebbs and flows of things. But I remember it got so insane that you felt like you couldn't even admit you were a man in the morning. You almost had to be like, hey, happy to be here. I might be a woman. I don't know. We'll see. It's almost like you had to pledge like that. You don't know. I might be a woman in a few years, considering it, just to even walk around. And that's here in Los Angeles I'm talking about. But let's get to some dates, man. I got to some calls. But yeah, I'm going to Vancouver this weekend. I'm excited about getting into Canada. I was just there in Montreal, but I'm excited about getting back. I will be at the Cap City Comedy Club in Austin and that's September 7th, 8th, and 9th. I will be at Hilarities in Cleveland, September 14th through 17th. And then October, I'll be out here in Los Angeles. November, I'll be in Huntsville, and that is November 16th through the 19th. That's Huntsville, Alabama. So I'm stoked about that. You can check out tickets, everything at theovon.com/tour. I have a bunch of new stand-up comedy bits that I'm going to be putting up. And enjoy the Eclipse. You know, I will say enjoy it. Even if you go outside to peek on what it is, I think this is one thing that's going to bring people together, even if it's just for a minute. I mean, I think here in LA, we can only see it for a minute and a half. And we only get about 63% of the sun will be eclipsed. I don't think it's going to be like nighttime, but if it is, dude, pull out some nighttime antics. You know what I'm saying? Touch somebody's nuts, dude. Live a little bit. Touch your own nuts. You know, what am I saying? Somebody else's. That could be illegal if you don't know these people. Touch your own nuts, dude. You know what I'm saying? Sneak your hand in your pants. Do something squirrely. Break a rule. You can't break a rule anymore. Break a rule. You know what I'm saying? Scratch your ass a little. You know? Call somebody a cocksucker. You know? Walk outside with somebody from your company that you don't know. Stare at the sun. You don't need glasses. If your boss lets you out to watch the eclipse and they don't require you to have glasses or give you glasses, we're talking about one of the potential greatest class action lawsuits of all time. Look, we live in a lawsuit universe. I hate to say it. I don't like it, but that's what it is. All right? So get out there. If your boss says it's okay, get your eyes open. Tape your eyes open. You know what I'm saying? Get that money. Get that eclipse cash. Stacks on stacks on stacks. Solar stacks. Lunar stacks. Stackadactylus, boy. You know I'm a straight up Stackosaurus Rex. Get that money. All right, so let's get into some calls. I appreciate all the love and support. You can hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. Talk about anything, something you heard today. The new studio is still coming along, you know. I got my assistant on Monday, my boy Ken. He's a producer, too. We do some projects together. Comes over, starts building the studio, leaves. Leaves his tools, everything. Like, okay. Did you get kidnapped? You got kidnapped? You gone? What happened? So, couldn't even really navigate it, but going to try to this week. You know, going to try to finish it up. But we're coming along. The dining room is turned into a studio. So I'm excited. Thank you guys for your support. Listenership's increased, and I'm excited about that. Hit the hotline. Let's talk about some things. Let me know how you feel. You know, do you feel like a war or a natural disaster would help humanity? I know it's extreme. I know it's an extreme thought. But let's think about it. And also, if you hear me talk about something on this podcast and you don't like it, I got a lot of emails last week, right? A lot of emails. It's fine if you don't like it. You know? I probably wouldn't like everything that you shared. But call me and let me know why you don't like it. I'm okay with learning a new perspective. I'm okay with not being right. You know, I'm not here to be right. You know? But I am here to be able to share how I feel. You know? I am here. I'm here all day. I'm going to be eating Feel Flakes, baby. I open up a big bag of Feel Flakes because you're going to know how I feel. But I don't have to be right. I'm okay with being wrong. You know, if you want to help show me that I'm wrong, I'm perfectly fine with that. Hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. Let's get into a call or two here. One of the things we asked was how you felt about if the world were ending. What would your thoughts be? What would you do with your time? What would happen last day? Let's check in with some of that.
Hey, what up, Theo? This is JJ calling from the Northwest area.
Okay, we got JJ from the Northwest area. All right, thank you for calling. I hope you're okay. You sound a little bit like something you're hurt or something. I hope you're not hurt. You know, my buddy. And I don't know where the Northwest area sounds super vague, but we're gonna keep listening. God bless you.
I'm saying, what would you do if the world was coming to an end as you know it and you had one day left? Honestly, bro, what I would do is I would just want to be around all my family, you know. I don't know, don't go crazy or do anything crazy. I think, maybe just have a big barbecue with all your family,
Ooh, a big barbecue with all your family. That'd be interesting. I appreciate you calling, brother. Yeah, a big barbecue would be interesting. But then you're going to have to invite everybody over for this. Are they all going to, you know, I guess I should have just we should have decided on how long in advance you knew the world was ending. But let's say, yeah, you got the end of the world barbecue. Wow, that'd be pretty cool. What kind of music would you play? You'd probably have to drop a little bit of Tupac in there. I'd go with probably some, I want to say Kenny Chesney, but I'd even go with some, you need some heartfelt Americana country in there too, I think. I would go with maybe some, Travis Tritt. Who am I thinking of? Maybe, I might throw some Shania in there. Turn that thing up, get the ladies pumping a little bit. I'd throw a little Cupid shuffle in there because it's family. So you're going to want to have grandma out there hitting that Cupid shuffle. That love movement. That's beautiful, man. I love watching an old woman dance, dude. There's something beautiful about it. Watching a baby and an old woman dance. There's something beautiful about it, isn't there? I remember I used to stay up at night on the internet looking at videos of seniors dancing and people in community college. I used to watch a lot of community college beauty contests on YouTube, and there's some really good ones on there. You think it's wild, but there are some good ones. And but the videos that would get me the most would be senior citizens dancing with children. There's something special about it, something bringing us all together. But yeah, barbecue. But then you got what if the food is bad? What if you got the shitty potato salad? You sound like you're taking along a lot of responsibility. And I'm going to judge a little bit by how you sound here. I don't know if you're stoned, but you sound, if you call into the hotline, stand up or sit up when you call and talk. This is a conversation, just respect it a little bit in that sense, unless you are on a machine or something, brother. And if that's the case, then, God be good to you. And I hope that if you need a lung or something, hit me up. Because I think, I don't know, I don't have good lungs. I got a small esophagus. I got the heart of a lesbian and I got the esophagus of a cat. That's what they told me when I was young, when I first went to the doctor. He said, you have you got the windpipe of a very large cat. The man said, there at Oxnard Hospital in New Orleans. Mr. Bob Aaronsman told me that I had the windpipe of a large cat. But yeah, I like that idea, barbecue, but then you're thinking, what is that, potato salad? People are going to get scared then towards the end of the barbecue. I think the first 2 hours are going to be a hit. You're probably going to want to have liquor on hand. People are definitely going to want to drink on the way out. How does it end, though? When you really think about it. You're at the family barbecue, the world's ending, the sun's going down, it's your last sunset. What happens then? Do people get territorial? People get sad? Is the whole family huddled up? What about that pervy uncle? Is he reaching around the huddle? Is he trying to touch a young ass cheek of somebody that's a distant cousin? First cousin is illegal. Second cousin, not illegal. And you can look it up. You can say it's creepy or whatever. Yes, it's creepy. Right? It's creepy out here when I got 1,000,000 days to live. But when you're on that last day, how creepy is it if I'm not talking fully sexual, but I'm talking if you wanted to kiss somebody and just see what the feeling was like one last time. Around 11 o'clock, people will be jumping over into the neighbor's yard, probably looking for sex. Do you think that? Or do you think you'd all just sit there and be harmonious? It's really interesting. If you're and you can judge me and say, well, Theo, this is grotesque to think about. That's fine. That's fine if it is a little bit grotesque. But to think about it isn't. To think about it, you're right there. It's the end of the day. It's the party. Some things have gone okay. The potato salad was rancid. Somebody's sick. It's the end of the world. Some of the kids went to bed early. What the fuck? 9-year-old Lawrence, he fell asleep early. What? He doesn't even care. Maybe somebody got too fucked up, passed out. They're missing the end. But you can have somebody that's deviant in the family. They're going to want to jump across and maybe be swingers or do something. Reach out to the neighbors. I'm just saying. I appreciate your call, man. It's interesting to think about. what it would really be like at the end of the world. You know, what it would really, 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 really be like. I don't know. Let's take another call. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. It's your boy Tom from rural North Carolina. Just calling for basically if the world were to end today and we knew it, how would I handle that?
All right, this is Tom from rural North Carolina. Tom's called before. He's a frequent caller now. And Tom, I like the way that you call, man, and that's one of the reasons. I know I'm a little bit testy tonight, guys, but, I'm trying not to have a damn cigarette, dude. I mean, I would suck a tobacco farmer's cack right now. Just to see, just to maybe catch a drag. I'm going through that moment. I know it'll only last about 30 seconds, but that's what happens, It's what happens sometimes. And I'm not even a regular, so I can't even imagine what this is like for severe smokers. I cannot even imagine. Wow. But if you smoke and like it, go enjoy a cigarette. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade. But thank you for calling, Tom, from rural North Carolina. That's tobacco country. I can smell it through the speakers here. But thank you for calling about the topic. What would you do, Tom? It's the end of the world. It's your last day. Let's hear it.
So what I would do is I would do what I do. I would go to work just like any other day, go home, see my girl.
Wait, you go to work, dude? That's a company man, bro. You would go to work. Tom, we're talking about the end of the world. You're going to go spend you're going to be the only person at FedEx who's bringing their shit in. Overnight is the best service. There's no overnight. Nobody's coming in, Tom. Nobody's coming in to get their radio fixed or to buy some new software or something. I don't even know where you work. Nobody's coming in maybe if you ran like a horse place, somebody would come in to get a couple of horses. Because it's the last day of their lives and they've never done horseback riding. Or if you ran like a roller skating thing, people want to probably come and maybe spend a little bit of time in the rink. But, Tom, you're talking about going to work. I don't even know where you work at. It's fascinating, though. You're a lifeguard. You're the only fucking dude there. But you're a company man. You're an organized man. You stick with the schedule. That's interesting, Tom. I never thought about that. I think most people would call in. They would be the one day they would be able to call their boss and be like, I quit. Everybody would quit. That would have to be the first thing you would do in the morning. Wake up, quit work. I think by 1 p.m., I think half of the world would be naked. By 1 p.m. I remember an experience I had. I went on this thing called Semester at Sea, and it's like a floating university, and it was a gift. Somebody gifted this to me. I would not have been able to have this experience on my own regard. Just financially, it was interesting. But I remember, so you go around the world on this cruise ship, and you're at sea for 100 days. It's a floating university, right? It's a floating university. And you get to the further you get along, I noticed people started losing clothes. By about day 60, you could go to class without a shirt, and the women would wear bikini tops. And by day 90, I remember being in class in a Speedo, and it was totally okay. It wasn't just like there were a couple of kids that would do it, and the rest of the boys, if they felt, just comfortable enough, they would have no shirt on. And people had wild hairdos, and you just start to develop, you start to get freer and freer. That's what I noticed over time. We got freer and freer. And I think if it's the end of the world, that you're going to have that whole experience kind of, just expedited in a day or in the days leading up to it. But I think by 1 p.m., that last day, that most of the world would be probably naked. Just to have that feeling of what does this feel like? Have I been caged up in my clothes? What kind of existence have I been living that I was kind of forced to live into just by the bumper lanes that were put on the society around me? I don't know. Just interesting thought. But I do remember on that cruise, by the last 10 days, we were in class, just out in some ocean somewhere, and we were in Speedos, and it was totally okay. Everybody was comfortable with it. It was really interesting just how we got almost just got back to being comfortable in our skin. All right, onward. I'm sorry, Tom. Onward with the rest of your call. Now that your day at work is over, what would you do?
I just do what makes me happy every day. Lifting weights makes me happy. Being with her makes me happy. Just trying to be as happy as possible with the last moments we have. And I would definitely, as sappy and as sentimental as it sounds, I would definitely just sit there and I'd hold her hand as we die.
Wow. Let me think about that. So Tom said he would go to work, he would go to the gym. That's pretty dope, actually. That's commitment. I like that. That part I definitely get. Going to the gym. I just get I am taking my spirit to the end of the line and sticking to my commitments. I like that. And then you'd sit there with your girl and you would hold her hand. I think that's sweet, man. I think you would have people like outside of the deviant uncles and the swingers and the people who, put more of their balls into the sexual court. I think you'd have a lot of people who are lovers. You seem like a lover, Tom, who would probably do that too, who would maybe just sit there with their whole family and hold hands. Maybe play a game or just go around in a circle and tell stories about how you really felt about each other, because you'd have to get everything off your chest. You'd have to get rid of all the pain and the hurt and all of the love and the affection and the hope and you'd have to get it all out. I mean, I bet a lot of people would be calling people like around 11 a.m. that they always were in love with and afraid to tell them. You'd have a lot of crazy stuff. A lot of phone lines would be down. A lot of crazy memes. The young kids, the millennials would all just be doing memes. The youngest, though, the young millennials, I mean, like 11 years old, they would all just be sending dirt memes to each other and not knowing what to do. But that's interesting. It's interesting you'd sit there. Because there's something very manly about that, even though you say that that's sappy. There's something manly about, that you're going to be there with this lady that you love and not let her go into oblivion alone. Or at least not let her think that she is. And I think there's something still. Chivalry's not dead, even though the world is, huh? Even though the world would be. This is all hypothetical, guys. And I think we're keeping it pretty lighthearted, so this is good, I think these are neat thoughts. All right, let's move onward. We got another call. This one came in from Canada, our neighbors to the north.
Hey, Theo. Jim here.
Hey, Jim.
Calling from Canada. Got a more serious issue here. I think my dog's been sexually abused. What happened was I let someone look after him, and when I got him back, he was acting funny. He wouldn't eat his food no more.
Okay, so this is an interesting call. This is Jim, and he believes that his dog may have been sexually abused. May have been. This isn't a stunt call. I just want to let you guys know that all these calls are real. Onward, he's not eating his food anymore. I can't tell if this is a joke or not. Let's go onward.
He didn't want anyone to touch him. And the thing is, the person who was looking after him is, I've known them to be a sexual deviant in the past. So what should I do? Should I call the police? Like, where do I go from here? Because I don't want my dog being, like, emotionally scarred from this. So what do you recommend I do? Thanks.
I don't know if you call the police. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't have any suggestions. I've never owned a dog. I got attacked by a bunch of dogs twice. My birthday growing up. Another time I got attacked by some cats. I got attacked by a lot of animals. So I never had a dog, I didn't even know you could pet a dog until I was probably about 11 years old. I didn't know that people had them as pets and kept them in their homes. So what do you do? I mean, I don't know if I would let someone watch my dog if I believe that they have. I mean, how deviant is this person? I mean, if you think they're that deviant, I think you need to think before lending them anything. I don't even think I'd lend that guy a screwdriver. He'd probably try to hide it in his butt. So, letting him watch a dog that you love or whatever, that's crazy to me. And I'm sorry I'm sorry you did that. But dogs are resilient animals. I'd read about this or call a SPC, call a veterinarian. I think I'm the wrong person to call for this, man. But best of luck to you. Okay, let's take another call here. Thank you very much for hitting the hotline. Again, the hotline number is 985-664-9503. Here we go.
Hi, Theo. My name's Kiani Rosario. Love the podcast. Just wanted to ask, how do you deal with, feeling trapped?
Okay, this is Mr. Rosario, and she's asking, how do you deal with feeling trapped?
It could be in anything, in life, work. Just been feeling trapped lately.
Okay, she's been feeling trapped lately. I know her call is kind of low. She said, Theo, how do you deal with feeling trapped, by life, work?
Wanted to know if you had any advice for that.
Wanted to know if I had any advice for that. Thank you for calling, young lady. Our female listenership has been growing, so that's been exciting, and I appreciate the call. Well, I'll say this, because you said, how do you deal with feeling trapped? And I want to say that, it's a feeling. You're feeling trapped. And is that the actuality? Because I'm starting to learn in my life that my feelings aren't reality. My feelings, and sometimes even my feelings are, they usually will tell me that I don't feel good. But the reality is that that's not the case. The reality is that things are better than they feel. The reality is that if I suffer from depression, that sometimes my feelings will just feel bad, even if my life is not that way. So if you're feeling trapped, is that the reality? First, I would just look at that, and this is just a suggestion based on, some of my experiences. I would just look at the reality, because your actions are going to be what's real. If you're going to work and you have people around you that care about you and you're taking care of yourself and, all of these things, then those actions sound really good. Those actions sound promising, and those actions sound like you're doing a good job of living for you or for anyone. But if you're feeling trapped, it could just be the feeling. And sometimes what helps get rid of bad feelings is just by noticing the actions that you're taking. It sounds like you're going to work. I don't know what's going on in your life, but if it's good things, then the trappedness could just be a feeling. With that said, have I felt trapped before? Yeah, I feel trapped sometimes by, when it comes to dating and stuff like that, I feel really trapped when it comes to relationships. And I don't know why. I don't know why, really. I'm actually seeing a therapist now. I'll see her today, actually, right after the Eclipse. I'll walk into her office, and she is like a sex and love sort of therapist, but basically she just helps you think. She's a regular therapist, but she kind of specifies in those sorts of worlds, and she can help you think about why you behave or feel the way you do in certain relationships. So maybe if you're really feeling bad, maybe see a therapist if you think that could help. What else? If you're feeling trapped, by life, you could always try changing some things up. And you could also always try just, a lot of times I remember for years I would wake up and think, man, I know what my life's going to be like today. I got to go to work. I got to do this. And then I'll have to come home, and then I'll have to go to the gym, or then I got to go get groceries, and then I got to remember to, empty the DVR or whatever. But before I even walked out of the front door, I'd already lived my entire day in my head, and I'd already decided that it was mundane and that it was repetitive and that it wasn't going to be enjoyable. And so then that's how my day went. And all day I just felt trapped in this day that I already knew how it was going to go. And things never changed for me because I didn't allow them room to change. I know that sounds bizarre, but in my mind I didn't. Whereas if I would have got up in the morning and said, hey, today I get to go to work. Today, then I get to come home and I get to go to the gym, or I get to hug my, kid or bird or whatever you have, or, or I get to meet the exterminator. He's coming to get the spiders. I get to do these things. I get to live. I get to eat lunch. Instead of, man, I got to eat lunch again at the same place across the street. No, man, I get to eat lunch today. Holy shit. Almost make yourself ignorant in a way so that everything can be a surprise in a way. It's just really about possibility. Because then if you walk out of the door and say, wow, I get to go to work, it just feels different. And then I get to go to the gym. Wow, anything could happen at the gym. Instead of thinking, man, at the gym, I'm going to have to do this weights and this weights and this weights, it's already ruined your workout. It's not exciting. But if you go to the gym and be like, man, I can do anything I want. I get to do whatever. Even if you're just going to do the same shit you always do at the gym, the way you approach it, if you leave possibility there, anything could happen at the gym, I might win a new shirt if there's a raffle, or somebody might buy me a milkshake, or I might get a milkshake after. Who knows? Anything is possible, I might fall in love. Somebody might jerk me off somewhere behind a machine, I might jerk off behind a machine. Those are crazy ideas, but if you leave possibility, then you're walking around with possibility. The world suddenly, that you've lived in a million days in a row, suddenly it's full of mystery and intrigue and possibility. But those are some thoughts that I have. But if you're really feeling trapped, honey, or I don't mean honey, because that's sometimes belittling, even though I don't think it's belittling. I think it just means like sweet girl, sweet young lady. If you're really feeling trapped, and it continues to feel, it could be some psychological stuff, I don't know. So you might want to maybe talk to a therapist about it. But if not, those are just some things that I do sometimes that help me when I'm not feeling good. And just keep talking to people. Just don't feel trapped by yourself. Just don't feel trapped by yourself. And you're not now. Since you told me, now we're trapped. Whoa, we're in an avalanche, What's going to happen in here? Who's going to be the first one to fart in the avalanche? Stupid things, but when you open it up to possibility, even if it's ridiculous, it makes it better than be like, fuck, dang, we're stuck in an avalanche. This is going to suck, We'll probably be dead in 17 days, One of us will have to eat the other one, Boo. So I think just keep some possibility. Maybe that could help you feel better. But I do hope that you feel better, and I appreciate you calling. I appreciate everybody calling. I appreciate the calls. Continue to hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. I have to leave, actually. I got to go do a set at the Comedy Store, the world-famous Comedy Store. I'll be in Vancouver this weekend coming up. If you know anything fun there to do, let me know. I do a destination fantasy football draft every year, and this year we're going to go to Vancouver, so I'm very excited about that. You can hit the store, theovon.com/store, to get both of my albums that are out, to grab a t-shirt, or also we have these beautiful prints that are right behind me. You can see them on the YouTube, and they say, keeping my squad hydrated, and they are, that's a line from one of the albums. I want to thank Sherb, my editor. I want to thank Ken, the videographer. And that's it, man. That's it. And I want to thank you guys for listening to me this week and for joining me. And if you have ideas, things you want to talk about, or you want to hear about, or discussions you want to start, hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. And let's talk about things together, man. I want to talk about what you want to talk about. I don't want this to be just about my ideas. I want to know some of yours, and I'm grateful. And yeah, you guys helped me get through that craving for a cigarette. Wow, thank you. That really helped, man. I don't feel it anymore, so I'm gonna celebrate living, man. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna celebrate living. Hope you have a good eclipse, huh? You gonna see it? Will it be cool? What if it's a dud? I don't think it will be. Dude, it could be. What if it eclipses and then aliens show up? What if aliens show up, dude? And what if, honestly, all they want to do? Suck people's cacks, bro. Wow. Imagine spending, the next couple months playing hide our cocks from aliens. And the women will be pissed because the aliens won't be interested in them, They'll probably blame it on us, some of them, some of the ones who write articles, They'll be like, these guys are hogging all the aliens. We're not hogging them, okay? They're trying to suck our dicks, lady. Cut us some slack. We didn't tell them to come here and do it. They're doing it. You can't be left out just because aliens aren't interested in you right now. Gosh, can't we have anything? Can we have aliens? Can't poor white people have aliens? That'd be the coolest if aliens only wanted to blow poor white dudes. Because even though people say, oh, dang, bummer, people would feel left out if aliens weren't chasing them. They would, 100%. It's just how we're built. Celebrate living, man. I'd be naked by 1 p.m., probably jumping over the neighbor's fence, but then I'd come back and hold hands and do the powwow, I think. That's what I would do. But be good to yourselves, man. Take care of yourselves. Be good to yourselves, I bet you deserve it. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great.
Hey, sweetheart, here's the deal. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
Oh, no!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.
This past weekend. Let's connect that boom boom. All right. Oh, yeah. Thank you, guys. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, August 28th. The year 2017.
Celebrate living.
A lot of years, huh?
Celebrate misery.
A lot of years in the books.
You know that soon
This one's coming in hot. It's coming in hot, boy. And it's coming in wet. It's coming in wet. We're celebrating dark days right now. It's what we're trying to do. I just want to send some love and some light and some thoughts and prayers out to everybody that's affected by Hurricane Harvey. And they make it sound so nice, Harvey. Oh, what's Harvey going to do? Oh, Harvey don't ever do nothing. They make it sound like a fella in the neighborhood that, still lives with his parents. Oh, Harvey, collecting bottle caps and doing that. Harvey opened up his own window washing business and they went out of business, Friggin' Harvey, stealing all the Christmas candies. But then that's not what it is, and it shows up and it's more violent a lot of times than its name. And my thoughts and feelings and everything go out to those people in Texas that are struggling. Or if you have family members down there in Houston, you can make a donation. You can text Harvey, Harvey, to 9099, and that'll make a $10 donation. You can also, I believe, to the Red Cross. You can also look online, J.J. Watt, who is just a volatile, beautiful, capable caveman from the NFL, from the National Football League, has started a fundraising program. You can look it up online and you can donate there as well. But I'm happy to be here with you guys today. That rain comes in and it's heavy. That rain comes in and it's heavy. And if you're dry today and you're able to drive down your street or get out of your home, for you, that's probably, you're probably doing better than a lot of people. A lot of people down there struggling, and I'm going to find some other ways that I can donate. But thank you guys for being here with me today. I remember when I was young, I was a heavy sleeper. I was a heavy sleeper, man. I mean, I would dream that I was sleeping. And that's when you're dreaming that you are asleep. That's heavy. That's double sleep. You're under two realms of brain peace. And so that's where I was at. And I remember one time I fell asleep and a lot of rains came because I grew up in Louisiana and a lot of rains would come. And one time the baseboards or whatever, the thing was rotten at our place, and the water came in while I was resting. And I remember it getting all on the floor an inch or two, and I'd been resting in my mother's room. And she had a package of, I guess, I don't know how to say this appropriately, but feminine care sticks. Those feminine care sticks that women use. And that some men might even use. I don't even know what's going on these days, but, these feminine care sticks. And that were still in the packages, and they had gotten, a box of them had gotten caught in the water or whatever, and they were floating all around the room, and they had a bunch of, a sack of marshmallows, because sometimes I'd have me a little bit of marshmallows, before I'd go to bed, or just I'd keep a sack by my bed sometimes. And they had a sack of marshmallows that had, the water had opened up, and there was just all these feminine care sticks and marshmallows kind of floating around the room. And they had the neighbor's cat was over and was kind of kicking these feminine care sticks around the water. And it was wild because I was so scared, but here this cat was finding so much joy, snacking on these marshmallows and kicking around these feminine care products around this little lake that had formed in our home. So, what I'm just saying is sometimes you just, even though it's tough, find those bright moments. Even when the rains, when the water gets deep. I texted a friend in Houston to check on him, see how he was doing, and he sent me back a picture of this Cajun Navy, and that's people that have these airboats that are able to get out in the neighborhoods and help people out, and you see a lot of it. I mean, that's a neighborhood Dunkirk right there. That's neighborhood Dunkirk flaring up. When you got a fella just showing up at your doorstep, bringing you pizza or, cold water or phone charging, whatever. I mean, and it's beautiful to see people helping each other out. But he sent me a video of in his own neighborhood, of a boat going by. It's pretty just interesting to see, something you normally wouldn't see in a neighborhood. You don't see a lot of boats on streets. So that was interesting, man, and I appreciate him sending that in. But my thoughts and prayers and well wishes go out to all those people struggling down there in Texas. And I'm looking forward to making more donations as those opportunities arise. But Harvey, they name it Harvey, and that's what I don't like about some of these storms. Because if you're a senior citizen, you sitting there, and you hear, oh, Harvey's coming. What's Harvey? He's harmless. Harvey sounds like that boy in the neighborhood that never really got it together. That maybe that boy that had he had a flick of autism in his brain or something light. He still lived with his parents, and he was always, doing small businesses, pressure washing, or, painting. People in the neighborhood would hire him to paint stuff that didn't need to be painted, just so Harvey could get him a little bit of pocket money. Or Harvey would always be, Harvey never got it together. He's still living in his parents' basement in his 30s, and you don't invite him to the Christmas party because he steals all the Christmas candy. And they give it a name like that, Harvey, that sounds like it could be a miscreant or a door-to-door salesman. But then it shows up and it's violent. And sometimes I wish they would start giving these storms names that showed who they were, Here comes Manson. Here comes Ray Lewis. What about that? Here comes Ron Artest is coming out. See who we got. This Timothy McVeigh, this storm. Give him something that at least is going to put, if you're a senior and you hear Harvey's coming, you might not be as aware. You might not hide the cat on top of the cupboard. But if you hear that, that Lee Harvey Oswald is showing up, you might make some different adjustments in your home. So it's just alarming, and it's sad. And I'm not trying to make light of the scenario that people are dealing with, but I've been through some water times and they're really tough. But it's amazing to see if you can find them and you can find the joy to see what people are doing to help each other out. And when we're far away, instead of pointing fingers and thinking about this or that, what we can do is to donate. 'Cause money helps, Money helps it all. Thank you guys for joining me on this Monday, August 28th, 2017. You know, it's crazy to see winter is coming. You know, winter is coming. And Mother Nature, you know, she lifting her dress up and she got a cold crotch. And we're about to see some of that wrath show up. You know, and people talk about these, you know, the climate change and the warming and this and that. And who knows, you know, how much that's affecting us at this point exactly in certain areas. You know, I was in Canada, in Vancouver this weekend, and there were some drunk girls who were all fired up about global warming, saying, we want beaches, you know. We sick of the winters. We want beaches out here. And it's like, well, look, you can't have beaches just so everybody else can suffer in the world. But outside of that, I was in Canada this weekend. I had a good time. I went up to Vancouver. We had a fantasy football draft, a destination draft. So every year, my fantasy football league, one of them, we do a destination draft. We pick a city, and we all fly in, and we meet up, and we do our draft. We've done some, you know, we've done Austin, we've done Chicago, New York, where else? New Orleans, Los Angeles, San Diego, some other places, Miami. And we hit up Vancouver. And Vancouver's the kind of city, it's a small city. I mean, you can almost walk everywhere. And you kind of feel like you're just waiting for the city to get going. That's what I kind of felt like. You know, it's a small city, very friendliest people. I mean, friendly men and women. If you're talking to men or women, it just, there's a nice vibe in there. You don't feel like anybody's putting on airs or trying to be too cool for school. You don't feel as much pomp and circumstance as you do here, specifically in Los Angeles, you know, where you go to a bar, to a night event, and everybody's trying to be that fancy cat. You know, everybody trying to get you to, you know, smell their breath to let you know that they had the best tuna that night. You know, they trying to get you to take a hit off that albacore off their tongue. But you don't feel that up in Vancouver. It just felt like a good vibe, friendly people, kindness. Everywhere. You know, you stop and ask somebody for directions, they take you there. I mean, you know, we asked for directions to this beach and somebody just took us there. I mean, it was a couple of miles. It was 15 minutes. You know, but it was a captivating little city. You're just kind of waiting for the city to get going. You keep feeling like, oh, there should be more of an energy or a bustle, but people there are just more at peace. You know, and I've always thought Canada was a very peaceful place, but I was, you know, like, and New York's kind of gotten that way. New York, it's gotten so, I don't want to say gentrified, because I don't know if gentrified just means white, but whatever the financial version of gentrified would be. It's gotten so greenified, moneyfied, that in New York you don't even get mugged anymore. You know, you got to go up to, you know, north of Harlem to even get mugged. You know, in New York, it's like you walk around these days and it's just it's just a bunch of business people. It's people with money. You know, you almost have to ask somebody to, you know, fuck you up a little. You know, stab me a little or something, or just, you know, call me a pervert and, you know, hit me in the back of the knees with a broomstick. Could just, if you want to get that vibe, that, you know, that New Yorkie, you know, mug me. You know, I want to feel something. I want to feel like I'm in the city. And you can't get that in New York proper anymore. In Vancouver, you're just kind of waiting for it to pick up, but it's just a peaceful city. There's just peace going on. We had a nice time, though. We had a great fantasy draft there. We went out to this place called Kitts Beach. They have a beach, and it's like right on the edge of the city, and there's people out there just enjoying themselves. It almost looks like you're in heaven. I mean, it's extremely multicultural, and you're out there, and everybody's just enjoying themselves. Everybody seems to be having a good time. It definitely seems like like kind of the heaven you would picture in your brain. You know, there's mountains in the background, and there's skyscrapers, and, you know, even the homeless people seem to be on the uptick. You know, like they can still at least remember the homes they had. You know, they can at least still remember maybe a 2-bedroom, 2-bath that they used to spend time in. You see the homeless people in America, they're, you know, it's just like they just been, you know, boiling soup in their own eye sockets. You know, half of them don't, you know, like they've been gargling their own bile. You know, the homeless people here, they're tattered. They've been through the ringer. They've been through you know, they've been caught up in the dark arts for too long. They don't even remember how to use a faucet. You know, a lot of them, you take them by a sink and they just, you know, they'll urinate or just jerk off into it. But you don't see that up in Canada. You see people, even the homeless people, they're ready for homes again. You know, they know they're not going to be homeless forever. hell, half of them probably just camping. I mean, these people love the outdoors, and it's summertime. But if you get a chance to go to Vancouver, you want a nice getaway for you and your lady. The nightlife was pretty chill. It was chill nightlife, which for me these days is good, I'm not out there trying to find erroneous, female tits and doing cocaine out of people's buttocks and all that. I'm trying to be more relaxed. And so we had a nice time. But a good fantasy draft. I got a good team. One of my buddies lost his mind. And I hadn't seen this in a while. One of my buddies, the 3 guys went and they got themselves a chocolate bar from one of these marijuana outlets. In the marijuana these days, when I was young, that marijuana, it was just that brown, that dirt, I mean, hell, this shit, half of it was pine. That was one of the flavors. It was pine. This shit, somebody could have just cut it in their front yard earlier that day, the stuff you were buying when I was a kid. And you'd smoke it in the dark. You had no clue what it was. And half the time you didn't even get fucked up. You just acted fucked up. And that was that marijuana back then. But now these kids, these young buckaroos, they're hitting on this stuff. It's like Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe. This stuff will take you to Narnia. This stuff will have you fall out of the back of out of your own brain closet into the next realm. And they had a guy in our league who said he had smoked weed a long time ago. I think he was still trying to live a little and catch that vibe. And he ate a little bit of chocolate, dude. He started geeking. He started getting lifted. You could almost hear his brain stem just detaching from his spine. This dude was just a human balloon just floating around the room. He had to start marching. He started marching, took his shirt off. Dude, fucked up people like to take their shirts off, huh? Because they got to get out that cage, boy. Let me out this cotton cage. I'm fucked up. This polyester can't hold me. This dude was lifted and gifted. He was feeling that vibe, dude. He could feel the vultures just start to playing tug of war with his cerebellum. And he was getting lifted, dude. And he's not like that kind of guy. He even texted, he even sent the group text. We're all sitting there in the room. He sends the group text a text saying, I'm having severe adverse reactions from marijuana at this moment. And he said he did that just so he would have documentation of it. Like, this dude's like a research kind of guy. He likes that documentation. But man, he had his shirt off. He had us call him the place where he bought the chocolate bar. He only had one square. And he got bent. He got bent out, boy. He got bent out. He was catching levels. He was on that 3rd, 4th level, dude. He was hitting warp zones. He was fighting Bowser in his brain. He started marching around the room in a circle. The room made a full circle where you could go into the bedroom and then come out through the bathroom back into the living room in this hotel room. And he hit that circle. I mean, he was out there like Usain Bolton on that voltage, boy, on that plantography. On that garden that was just growing up through his soul, that weed. And that shit was powerful to watch, dude. We had to pray with him. We had to do a prayer circle. This dude, we bought him a bunch of orange juice. We had him in the shower. He was marching in the shower. So anyway, we got to dinner late. That night. But we did our fantasy draft. We had a good time in Vancouver. I would recommend Vancouver. It's not as crazy nightlife as you would think, but some great hiking, extremely wonderful people. I met a lot of fans just being out and about, had some great seafood, and just a fun, safe place. If you want to get out to a vibe, I mean, I felt like I could have slept on the concrete out front, and I would have woke up and somebody would have probably put a couple of blankets over me and maybe even put eardrums in my ears to make sure that something didn't wake me up. It was that kind of environment where people just seemed like they were helping each other out. But we watched the fight. Man, I don't know if you watched the fight or not. Man, it was good, huh? It was interesting. I mean, right out of the gate, I was thinking, did you see the referee? The referee looked like, first of all, it looked like he was just talking to Connor, but I guess maybe the rules need to be readdressed to him because it's, boxing, straight boxing isn't his deal. But the referee looked like every Greyhound bus driver I've ever had. I don't know if you saw that gentleman or not, that beautiful. And he had that booty, like that DS booty. He had that Down syndrome booty. And a lot of, some of you guys know one of my better friends growing up, Derry, had DS and Down syndrome, popular disease. And he had it, and he was, we used to eat sandwiches and stuff and do a little bit of, light ghost hunting and stuff like that by the Ramada when I was growing up. But man, this referee looked like every Greyhound bus driver. So out of the gate, I was like, I'm into this thing. This fight feels already familiar. It was exciting, man. It was exciting. The ring girls looking lovely. And at first I felt so nervous. I don't know if anybody else felt that, but for the first, the first 2 rounds, I was so nervous. And I can't even feel why. When I think back, why do I feel this way? I think I was just nervous because, McGregor seemed so out of his element. Even his stance and everything, it was just, he looked so vulnerable to me. And I don't know a ton about boxing. I don't know a ton about fighting. I know that both these guys are masters in their universes. But it made me nervous, man. I was nervous for him, the first 2 rounds. And then after a while, I just felt like you could see the flaws they were natural flaws in Conor's. He didn't have any finishing moves. He didn't have that Hayukin. He didn't have that power. He didn't have that power play. He had just a lot of these straight punches, and I was just like, where's that finishing move? At one point, I'm just like, throw a kick, daddy. Throw a knee burst. But he didn't have a finishing move, and that kind of, I feel like, made it a little bit tough. And I wish that, I know at the end of the fight, he said, I wish they would have let us go to the mat where one of us fell, one of us hit the dirt. And I think at the time he probably thought that. But this morning, I bet that he was probably glad that it didn't happen that way. That it didn't go down like that it ended how it did. I mean, it's really interesting to see. I hope, I want him to fight somebody else next. Andy Dick, who else could he fight? A-Rod, I'd love to see him take on A-Rod. I'd love to see him honestly beat Chris Paul's ass. If he go in against Chris Paul, I'd love to see, or Martina Navratilova, some of these people that want to be young gunners and get in there. But we'll see, man. It was exciting. I wonder if maybe in the original agreement, if he would have asked for an MMA referee. That was something I was thinking. Would he have rather an MMA referee who maybe, might have at least been able to judge and referee the fight a little bit more, not to his liking, but in a comfortable manner. I feel like it would have made it a little bit more fair. I mean, it was heavily favored to Floyd whenever you were looking at it. Even when I first came on, I was like, wow, okay, this is boxing. This isn't MMA at all. I mean, this is boxing, and you really saw somebody step outside of their comfort zone. I mean, it's really inspiring. You saw they had a lot of videos and stuff of these guys doing the after party and really having a good time, man. But yeah, I mean, I was nervous. It was exciting to watch, but it was inspiring. I was like, man, I want to work out hard. I want to do something. I want to step outside of my comfort zone. I want to be a baker. You know what I'm saying? I want to challenge, I want to challenge a motherfucker on some donut level. Maybe want to step outside of my comfort zone. I want to wake up and in 4 months, I want to go, toe to toe with an archaeologist. Bitch, where are these bones? I'm out here. Oh, you digging? I'm digging. You could shovel, I could shovel. It made me want to kind of change up and feel inspired. And then this morning, I just, pretty much a little bit of that left me. Because, inspiration, man, that stuff you have to be reminded. Man, I wish you could have inspiration like an IV, a drip bag of inspiration. That's what I need a lot of times. Because I will feel inspired, and then it will go away. It will go away. But good to be here with you guys. Hope you guys had a happy weekend. I was in Vancouver. I flew back this morning. Had a couple of sets tonight at the Comedy Store and at the Hollywood Improv. And I'm so happy to be here on this past weekend. I have an announcement to make, too. A couple of them. One, we got a new set. It's coming along. You can go to YouTube whenever the podcast comes out on YouTube, which is Monday evening or Tuesday morning. And you can check it out. You can let me know what you think. Also, this week, we're going to launch our Patreon account. That's Patreon/Theo Von, Theovon. And it's just to support the podcast directly. We've had some advertisers come on and people have reached out and said, look, man, I just would love to support the podcast directly. And personally, I want to continue improving the show. I love doing this show. I'm so grateful for this experience. I want you guys to know that. I was nervous when I started out. and I'm still nervous. I'm nervous a little bit every time I get on here and start, sharing, and I don't know what I'm doing sometimes, if I'm sharing too much or not sharing enough. But I do feel like, like together that we're doing something good, we're on to something good, and I want to take it to the top, and I want to include some options online where people can, become more involved, and that where we can work more together. And so that's what the Patreon will be. And we hope to have that launched on Wednesday, so you guys can check that out if you so choose. No pressure, no matter what. You will always have this past weekend on your Monday mornings. All right, and I want to let you guys know some dates. We have September 6th through 9th. That's next weekend. I'll be at Cap City in Austin. If you have friends or family in Austin, tell them to come on out. September 14th through 17th, I'll be at Hilarities in Cleveland. And then November 17th through 19th, I'll be at Stand Up Live in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm excited about all of those things. Feeling pretty excited, man. I felt a little bit nervous tonight before I started. Sometimes I guess I get a little nervous. I get a little bit nervous of what the vibe is and what you guys want to hear, what I want to talk about. And I just appreciate you guys being supportive and sticking with me. We got a lot of great calls that came in, and I want to just get right into them, man. Some of them are really, really interesting. So let's crack in to the hotline calls right now. The number is 985-664-9503. If you're down in Texas and you had an experience from the rain, where you saw something go on that you thought was pretty remarkable, I'd love to hear a little bit about that. That's one of the things you can hit the hotline with. As well, if you're just going through something and you want to share it, you can hit the hotline with that. Anything that if I've been through it as well, I'm happy to share. I don't have advice, but I do have suggestions, and I do have my own experiences so that we don't have to feel alone. All right, let's check in with this first call right here.
Hey, what's up, Theo? This is Tim from Tennessee.
All right, Tim from Tennessee. I can hear that. I can hear that jingle in your jungle, man, in your neck instrument. That V-box, baby. I can hear you spouting off that sweet Southern. You got that molasses in your sound canal. Let's hear more.
I'm calling about an issue I have. So I have this cousin who's trying to be a rapper, a Christian rapper, actually.
Woo! He's got a cousin trying to be a Christian rapper, man. That's wild, baby.
It's whatever. I don't really like Christian rap. It's all pretty much terrible. But if that's what, people get a hold of that and it helps them, go for it. But the problem is that he's terrible.
Wow. The problem is that he's terrible, man. He dropping hymns and spinning rims, baby. You know what I'm saying? He's caught up in that CR, son, that Christian rap. Having babies with virgin ladies. Parting seas and Negro, please. Y'all turning up out there in that Bible Belt. He's dropping it off, huh? And you think he's terrible. Well, look, I feel you, man. I have friends that have thought that I think are terrible at stuff that do things, And I'm going to stop you right there, but I'm guessing that you're just wondering how to handle it. And here's what I say. What do you lose by him giving it a shot? He's going to go as far as he's going to go with it. He could be great. There were times for years when I was not good at comedy. And if somebody would have really said that to me, I might not have kept going. And I'm not saying that I'm great today, but I'm saying today that I can do my job. And I can say that I do my job well. But, you just can't take away his hope. So I think if you can offer, if you have constructive suggestions, fire him at him. Because, dude, this guy's getting into a crazy game. I know there are some Christian rappers that are popular. I think most of them are black, so it'd probably be good to see some diversity in the market could be good. I'd love it if actually you could hit the hotline and drop one of his tracks in. Maybe we could even start one of the podcasts off with it next week. So if you have the ability to do that, or you can email it to me at theovon, TheoVon, at mac.com. But I appreciate you calling and saying this, And you got to think that Jesus balled out, He was a rapper in a way. If you want to think, whether you think about him as the Savior, or you think about him just as a human being. That dude was, spitting in the desert, Jesus was dropping lyrics in the desert. It's hard to even keep moisture in your mouth in the desert. So at the very least, boy, he was a Eminem, if you feel me. It's hard to even keep your tongue wet in the desert. And he was roaming around, dropping tracks, dude. You know, so, I mean, there's some respect there, you know. I mean, that's real stuff. So I just support his ability to try something different. Try not to be too hard on him. Buy him some gold teeth. You know, maybe make it something that you enjoy. You know, buy him some gold teeth, like, 5 gold teeth and spell out, HYMNS. And put that hymns in his grin. You know, or get him a gold necklace with 3 nails on it. You know, it's hard sometimes with family, to support them. Because for some reason, family, when they do some shit, it will drive you way more crazy than when friends do. You know, I mean, my sister she did one of those things on Facebook one time where it's like, I'm going to say something I'm thankful for the next 700 days. And man, I wanted to speak up. I wanted to say I feel like that's crazy, but it doesn't matter what I feel, you know? So I'd find a way to embrace it, maybe get a tattoo on your back of him fucking dropping mad tracks, The Lamb, boy. The Lamb of Jeezy, boy. He's spitting straight fire wool, So see what you can do there, man, to support him. Just don't take away his hope. I think you can offer him some suggestions if you feel like it, or ask him if you want suggestions, but don't fire him off and take away his hope. Maybe see if you could be a background singer. That shit would be hilarious, because then you're embracing it. You're part of it. So I'd find a way to embrace it. If my brother came to me and said he wanted to be a Christian rapper, dude, I would gain about 150 pounds and put on a dress that them thick girls, them girls that got them, they got them bassists, they got that deep throat, where they can gargle different sounds down there, and I would put on a big robe and I would support my brother. I'd be hitting them back round. Jesus, we out in this motherfucking desert. Dang, 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 dang. 3 days later, I'm back. Easter. Play that back up, baby. You can help him out. Good luck with it. Thanks for calling. Onward, next caller.
Hey, what's up, Theo? This is Josh. I'm out here in Charlotte, North Cackalack.
Josh in Charlotte, North Kakalaka. That's North Carolina, for those of you guys who don't know. Josh, thank you for calling.
Like to see you come down to the Comedy Zone here in Charlotte. That'd be cool to see you, man.
I've been there before to Charlotte, and the only time I was there for at the Comedy Zone. I had a good time. I'll be back next year. I don't know the dates, but I saw Cam Newton. I was there for 40 minutes. I'd been in town. I'm sitting on the outdoor patio of a McCormick and Schmick's, having me a little salad. And Cam Newton went by with a baby carriage, pushing his son. He had a newborn, or it had been, a few months old, and he's pushing his son in a baby carriage. And at first I thought it was a homeless guy, because he was, you don't see a lot of adult men at all just pushing a baby carriage by themselves down the street. And you also don't see a lot of adult black men, at least I'm not used to seeing that, pushing a baby carriage down the street. And he had on this, kind of a Gucci hat and a scarf. And I'm like, dang, this dude might be homeless. But then he got closer, and I was like, holy shit, this dude is Cam Newton. So you never know, man. You never know when a homeless person might be Cam Newton. You never know when you might be surprised. Onward.
Just want to get some advice from you, if you could help me with something. Started dating this girl, and she's a bit of a squirter.
Oh, okay. So you hitting them waterworks, baby. You passing, I don't know if it's Baltic Avenue or Marvin Gardens, and you hitting them waterworks with the ladies. Okay. This is kind of an edgy topic, but we're going to try to field it here. Thank you for calling. Onward.
I always thought that was cool at first, especially when I'd see it like in some pornography or something, but...
Yeah, them sprayers, them gunners. Remind you of going to the fair when you play that game, you're trying to shoot that thing and get that animal from that old man. And that dude usually probably look like he has some kind of a skin cancer or lung cancer. But onward, I know what you're talking about.
man, after a while, it's just getting, I don't know, man, I have to change the sheets all the time. I'm going to the store to get detergent. And, you know, these people are probably like, this dude's got a lot of clothes or something, you know?
Yeah, with detergent, and also buying detergent, a lot of people think you might be cooking it down and doing some kind of new dope. And that's one of the issues I run, because I've at times in the past, I had me a little bit of an Afrin habit. I get that Afrin, and I use the suggested dose. Now, I'm not riding outside of my suggested dose circles. But, man, sometime coming around 11 o'clock, dude, my hands start fiending for a hit off that Afrin. For a hit to, get my nasal passages sedated. But, yeah, I can feel you, man. So you're dealing with a lot of extra laundry, because you got Old Faithful in the bedroom. Onward.
But I don't know if you can give me any advice on that, man. It's just a mess, man. And I really like the girl too. But all right, man. Have a good one.
It's interesting, man, because I met a girl years ago she'd moved to town. She dated one of the Jonas brothers. I don't know which one. There's 3 of them. I think they all damn look the same. Beautiful young men. From what I remember, I never looked at them very closely. But this gal, she was really, she had that extra plumbing. Some girls, they just got that wild piping where they be spraying out a little. And yeah, at first you're like, oh, this is a party. Daddy's here, I'll do it. I'll wash dishes down between this gal's legs, But then after a while, that ain't no joke. That's a liability, unless they're, putting extra use to some of that activity, like they're watering plants or, refilling the fish bowl. It can be a bit overwhelming at times. So I don't know what you do, because you don't want to make her feel bad, because this is a natural thing. And look, we all have things naturally about us that our loved one or our spouse doesn't like. It could be that you clear your throat, or you pick your nose while you drive, or that you have a lot of body gas. And sometimes if I don't sleep well, I'll get a little extra body gas. So, I know that I can be, I have things about myself. But maybe find some other ways you guys can be sensual without hitting that gasm, without, Hurricane Harvey stopping by y'all's bedroom every night. Because that can be wild, So maybe talk to her about it. See how she feels. Because, yeah, otherwise you got to keep a stack of towels there in the bedroom, and you got to really sound off. Otherwise, other than that, I'd say make it fun. Put a couple of barrels. They used to have this thing, little buckets. They used to have this show called the Bozo Show or something, where if you got a thing you threw these balls, if you got it in a bucket, you got you a Subway sandwich. And they'd have children on there. And this might have just been locally, but they had this guy, Bozo the Clown or somebody, the grand prize game. You throw these ping pong balls at these buckets. If you got it out to the 5 bucket, then you got you maybe a Subway sandwich for your whole classroom of children. So maybe do that. Maybe make something fun or cute about it. Or just make 2 nights a week where y'all do sex, and that's the activity night. And this, show up prepared. Put floaties on. Be a baller. You know what I'm saying, dude? Get that Michael Phelps neck piece. Do something, But I think instead of, if you want to keep her and you do care about her, then you're going to have to find a way to make it comfortable for you. And to not talk to her about it in a way that makes it uncomfortable for her. Man, that's a tough one. That is a tough one, man. And if somebody out there has good advice for this gentleman, about his damp damsel, if we will, then hit the hotline and let him know. And I'll try to do a follow-up episode this week where other people can give you some return advice about that damp damsel and how to handle that. But yeah, it's interesting because the things you see in pornography, man, you get those things in real life, dude. It's not the same thing. If like you got a girl out there, they had this one thing, years ago, some girl was eating, she could eat donut holes with her hoo-ha. And yeah, that's great. That's cool on a brunch, maybe a Sunday brunch, you partying with your new girlfriend, and you having you a little bit of fruit or some, a yogurt, and she hiding donuts, she calorying up. But dude, come, a couple months of that, you having to run to the store all the time and get donuts and shit, that shit's crazy. And what if her hoo-ha starts to upscale and that thing wants a Butterfinger or a Payday, or $100,000 or $1,000? That thing starts hiding whatchamacallits and almond joys in its cheeks. Dude, then you're talking I mean, then you're talking the dark arts. So the things you see in pornography, sometimes they can escalate when you get them in real life. But I would approach it in a way, if you do talk about it with her, in a way that's comfortable for her. You know, 'cause you just don't want to make her feel bad, because once she starts feeling bad about her body, that's going to be uncomfortable for everybody, man. You know? But good luck, man. I appreciate you calling in about it, brother. Whoo! You partying out there, dude. Wherever you are, North Kakalaka, they partying. All right, next caller. Onward.
What's up, buddy? This is Nathan from Kansas City.
This is Nathan from Kansas City. I just picked your defense in my fantasy football league. I hope they do well. Onward, Nathan.
I just had a quick question for you, man. I grew up with two real good friends of mine, and we're kind of slowly drifting apart. And I believe that they're actually pretty upset with me. Now, I'm not sure what it is that they're upset about, but I would like to sit down man to man and kind of talk it out. And
okay, so you grew up with two good friends, and they're really upset at you, but you're not sure what they're upset about, and you'd like to sit down man to man and talk it out. That's what we got so far. Onward.
And they don't answer the phone, they don't respond to text messages. So I'm kind of at a loss at what to do, and I'm hoping maybe you could help me out with some advice on this subject here, man. I love the show.
All right, thanks for calling, man. Love the show, man. I appreciate you enjoying it, and I love you, brother. You know, I want you to feel good about this, dude, but it sounds like you know they're upset. They're calling you. You know they're upset, but you don't know about what. You know, and I don't want to say I don't believe you, man, but you got to have some inkling, you know? If you know they're upset, you know, but you're not sure about what, you probably got to have some inkling, you know? And if they don't want to respond to you right now, then, you know, obviously if it's two of them, you know, they must be really upset about it. So, I mean, I think there's two things here. One, I would just give them some space. You know, maybe they're moving along. Maybe you guys don't even need each other. Maybe, you know, maybe this friendship has run its course. Or two, it sounds like there's a little more to the story. I would own up to whatever happened and go see them face to face and own up 100%. And I wouldn't own up with a but, you know, look, man, you know, this happened, but I felt this way. I'd leave the but off of it. I would show up, own up to whatever you did personally, and don't ask for, like, you know, if you want continued friendship, then say, look, bruh, you know, I want to still be friends. I want to still be buddies. You know, I want to still split Kit Kats together. You know, I want to still, you know, sit around and hide dip in our mouths together and do friendship. You know, I want to still sit in a room and have your body heat be in the distance. If you still want those things, then let them know that. But you're also going to have to probably, if there was something you did, you're going to have to apologize to it. I'd do it man to man. I wouldn't hit the phone lines. I would do it man to man. And I wouldn't say any buts. I would just apologize and let them know, look, I'd still like to be friends. You know, adult friendship, dude, this shit's tricky out here. Because adults, they get busy. Sometimes their wives don't want them hanging out with other adults. You know, people start getting, jealousy happens. You know, you get a new house, but your buddy don't have a house yet. And he's still out there in an apartment. Jealousy happens, you know. Your buddy loses his leg and you still got two legs. And next thing you know, he don't want to talk to you. Because he think you're showing off by having two legs. That's crazy. You know, but adulthood friendship is hard. And that's one thing that was fascinating about young friendship. To be friends when you were young, all it was proximity usually. It's like your best friends, still to this day even, were just usually people that lived near you. That was it. You know, it's not like there was this big friend search where you interviewed thousands of other children when you were a child. It was just who's nearby. Oh, they are? Boom, boom, friendship. It's, you know, it's like a lot of it's just proximity based. So, you know, if you value their friendship, then I would make it a man-to-man apology. I wouldn't try it on the phone. I appreciate you calling up. Let's hit another call here. We're cruising through some calls, man. And I appreciate you guys calling and hitting the hotline, 985-664-9503. I'm feeling good. I'm trying to get through this. It's 12:45 a.m. here on the Pacific Coast time. I got a cool week coming up. We have David Allen Greer coming in on our podcast for allegedly Spencer Pratt as well. That episode will be airing this week, I believe, on Allegedly. That's my Hollywood podcast. You can check it out with my wonderful co-host, Matthew Cole Weiss. And we have, who else is coming in? It's rumored that Chris Hansen's supposed to be coming on. So that could be really, really exciting. All right, let's take another call. Here we go. All right, let's take another call. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, this is Cody calling from Boulder, Colorado again.
This is Cody from Boulder, Colorado. You up there in the country, up there where they everybody's eating drugs and stuff up there in the mountains. Thank you for calling.
First off, I want to thank you for taking my last call about texting and phone culture. I really enjoyed your poo in the meat Taco Bell story.
Yeah, it's a true story, and everybody uses the that there was feces in the meat in their Taco Bell in their town, but this really happened in my hometown when I was growing up. It really, really happened, and it was alarming, but we made it through it as a community. And it's amazing sometimes what community can overcome together. Let's hear more.
And when you said, I don't know if we can go back related to texting, that really kind of made me think about some shit. The reason I'm calling this time is about love. I feel like you don't really talk about that other than like guys trying to blow you. That's really the only thing we've heard. Specifically, I want to talk about monogamy and polygamy. From where I'm at in Boulder, and I know in like San Francisco, polygamy is real big.
Okay, so from Boulder, he's saying that I don't. He wants to talk about love. He's asking me, I don't talk about love that much, except for if fellas is trying to blow me or run my pole. If they're trying to run my pole with the inside of their face. And that is probably in reference to when Andy Dick tried to blow me a few times over there in Shreveport, Louisiana. But onward, I'll hear the rest of this.
From where I'm at in Boulder, and I know in like San Francisco, polygamy is real big. And personally, I'm just not sure that I can marry the same person for 40 plus years or whatever. So yeah, just curious your thoughts on that. Thanks again for doing what you do, man. You're a freaking legend. Peace.
I appreciate your call, man. I appreciate your previous call, and I appreciate this one. I really do. I appreciate everybody that takes time to call in and help, because this show goes. It goes because you guys call. My brain, I'm short. I've always had a short, kind of a short brain. I remember they did a CAT scan on me, and the man said, "You got a short brain." And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And I got angry with him, even though I was just wearing just that one piece in the hospital where the back is open, where anybody could fuck you, which is really, I think, very scary to put on somebody when they're already alarmed and they're in a hospital. I mean, I say put them in a full damn ski outfit, but, they want to put you in that thing to scare you even more. And the man said, "You got a short brain." He goes, the width of your brain from the bottom to the top is not very tall. He goes, "You got a short brain." But that doesn't surprise me. I've always had, a lot of medical deficiencies or abnormalities. My father told me when I was young that I had the heart of a lesbian. And the man told me, one of the doctors told me when I was a child that that I had the rib cage of a large cat. Probably, I'm thinking mountain, some sort of a mountain cat. Probably something you would see up in Boulder, maybe. But anyhow, we're talking monogamy and polygamy, or monogamy. And can you do it? What's it like these days? I think I wouldn't be surprised if we get more towards a culture where, where marriage isn't as necessary. And I hate to say it because I want to see, I love the family unit. And it's statistically proven across the board that children survive and thrive better when they have two parents in the home. And that's a statistic for every ethnicity. Go look it up. Every ethnicity. And so but it's like, is that what's popular right now? Is that what's going on? And I don't know. It scares me too, to think, I mean, I've been talking to a gal, and I was just talking to her about, how that makes me feel very nervous. And I think part of the nervous thing about being with somebody forever is just the propensity for you to be able to mess up, to cheat or to lie or to not be a good husband, and that's the scary part, I think, of monogamy these days. Is man built to be able to withstand all this constant barrage with the pornography and the Instagram and the titties wandering by? You know what I mean? I mean, you open your eye. If you even open your eyes outside, it's like everything has titties on it now. You know, when you start to see them, and it's just there's just a lot of breast work out there that there wasn't. I think years ago, our grandfather, only time he saw some other breasts, maybe if he went to the store, you know, or if he even held a soft melon back in the day. You know, if you probably in the 1930s, if he even held a soft melon, that's the only time he really thought of somebody outside of his marriage. When he was checking melons, you know, when he was considering buying fruit, I mean, that used to be the old playboy, probably pulling up to a fruit stand and feeling the different, you know, the plums and the different, you know, honeydews out there and just feeling their softness. I mean, goddamn, you put a C-cup avocado in each one of my hands, and my penis will mount up on top of my nuts, and it will be erect. So it's wild to think that back in the day that's the only stimulation that they had. You know, when I was young, you had the pornography magazines, but you also, a lot of people, I think in our neighborhood, were drawing pictures of vaginas in the dirt. And I don't know if it was just in our neighborhood, even around town, there was a group or maybe just one person, and an artist, I guess you could even call him an artist, you know, or somebody that was trying to do graffiti but didn't have any paint. And they would just be drawing pictures of vaginas in the dirt, and you'd be wandering around town and just see a vagina in the dirt. And that would always be a little bit crazy, you know, to see that, and that would make you feel erect and stuff, and you never knew when you were going to see that. But nowadays, yeah, it's like, you know, it's hard to just conserve your sexual energy for one person because there's so many things trying to take it from you nowadays. Polygamy, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it'd be great, of course, you know, to maybe have a change of pace in your life. You know, but you got to be a great multitasker. Would it be good for the kids? You know, I don't know enough about it, what the effect of polygamy has on children, you know, when you get dad 2 or 3 nights a week, you know, when you got your different types of wives. And I mean, I feel sometimes like I have enough love inside of me to, you know, to be able to maybe live in that environment. But is that practical? I don't know. You know, I don't know, man. And I don't talk a lot about my past endeavors, man. I mean, I've had a lot of sexuality over the years, you know, some good and some bad. And I don't really even like sex that much. I'm not real keen on it. You know, people banging their bodies into each other. You know, it's just, sometimes it just gets old a little bit. And maybe that's a dour look at sex. And maybe I need to, you know, have my chi, you know, reconfigured. You know, I need to take my chi into the chi shop, you know, and remodel my chi. But that's just how I feel sometimes, you know. That after a certain point, also, it's just got to be about more than that to have that connection. But it's a great, you know, I don't think there's a man, you know, every man thinks about it for sure about polygamy. You know, I think it's natural. They say it's natural to want to mount up and do love and do sex on others. They say it's natural. So it's a fight you're in. If you're staying monogamous and you're in a one-on-one relationship, if you've been in a long-term relationship and you've stayed true in it, I'd love to hear some of what that feels like. What some of those values are. What are the prizes there that you get emotionally for yourself? What does that feel like, man, if you're out there? You know, or ladies. A lot of these ladies be running around these days, slanging that canal. It's wild out there. It's definitely wild. How are we getting on time here, man? I think we're getting a little bit along. I'm actually going to, let's take one more call here and see what's happening, man. I want to say this. We got a caller right here.
What's up, Theo? Hello, Louisiana boy, calling in here from Shreveport, LA.
Shreveport, Louisiana. That's Randy Dick tried to break me off with them tongue and jowls, you know, on my biddles. Onward.
Just calling in with some problems that I'm currently having. I graduated high school 2 years ago.
Congratulations. If you graduated high school in Louisiana, congratulations, brother. Not easy for a lot of people, and I appreciate you calling tonight, man. Thank you. Onward.
Currently 20 years old. Just been having some problems with excessive pornography use, lack of motivation to go out and get girls. I had a few girlfriends in high school, and every time I get the opportunity to go
hang out with a girl or whatever, I always talk myself out of it, whether it's, you know, kind of insecurity or lack of confidence.
All right, I appreciate this, man. I mean, you know, this is an issue that I've struggled with over the years. You know, you're having some issues with pornography, and you were dating in high school, but now you're not dating that much, and you're feeling like you might have, you know, a lack of motivation to do that. But it sounds like you are interested in women, so onward.
Because I have in the past, you know, had girls. I know I can talk to girls. I'm not a complete loser, but just because I've gone through some shit right now with that, I was just, you know, calling to see what your thoughts are on that and how I can kind of pull myself out of this funk.
Dude, you can pull yourself right out of that funk. I'm going to tell you that, how to unfunk. Dude, how to ungunk your funk. How to ungunk your funk, this is how. So you got to stop the masturbation. You got to stop the pornography. If you feel like you feel like it's gotten out of control, people that are just watching it and enjoying it, and not everybody's calling and saying they feel like it's gotten out of control. So if you feel that way, it's probably based on something real. You know, that it's become a bad habit. It can probably be a healthy habit for you again one day, but for now you might want to address it. You know, and some people think I'm crazy. Well, dude, he can jerk off. What does it mean? He can jerk? This fella just trying to jerk off. But if he's reaching out and he's not comfortable for him anymore, then it's not a fun game for him. You know, yeah, I get it, dude. It's fun. You know, I remember cruising on the interstate and, you know, blasting one out the side of a open van door. You know, and that was a blast, dude. But those days are over. And now when you're just doing it at home and you're not going out and meeting people, so what you got to do is you got to cut it off. Not your wiener, bruh. But you just have to stop it. You got to find some ways to stop it. You got to find habits. Notice what your habits are whenever you do it. Shut it down at night. No electronics late at night. Shut it down. You know, and as you get away from, you get 30 days away from it, I promise you, you'll just start to feel better in your body. You'll feel more motivated. You'll feel more confident. And I'll even tell you this, man. They got SAA meetings. And that's it's sexual addiction stuff. And that can be anything, man. It doesn't mean you out there perverting. You know, it doesn't mean you out there peeping Toming or, you know, being a weirdo. They got them, I'm looking here right here online. They have them on Monday, Thursday, and Friday in Shreveport, Louisiana. So you can check them out. Nobody's going to know that you heard it on here and went. Nobody's going to know anything like that. But go check it out, man. You can hear about it. You can hear other people share what's going on with them. It's recovery, bro. You can get in that and make yourself feel better, dude. You know what I'm saying? Get off that seed gun. Because you just getting handy with the seed gun, baby. You Wyatt Earp. When you come to your crotch, bro, you are Wyatt Earp. And that's okay, man. You just got to settle that Wild West down. You got to settle that. You got to take the wild out of the West for a while. And I promise you, you'll feel invigorated. You'll feel more confident. You got to let that chi build up. You got to let that chi build up. And I'm telling you that because I know that. You know, I'm telling you that because I know it. And you ain't alone, baby. I've been out in them skeet streets. And I know some people say that I beat this topic to death, play on words, of course. But look, if you're calling about it and I can share about it, man, then I'm happy to do that. And I appreciate you guys all hitting the hotline. We got one more call right here. But good luck, man. And if you even want to just hit me on the hotline again, I won't put the call on, but, just to let me know what's going on, or if you want to talk about it in the future, man, I'm happy to discuss it. But, yeah, it's a battle out there, dude. It's a battle out there. If you want to be a man that's not caught up in the dark arts, you know, that's not out there, you know, hiding in the living room while your wife laying in the other room, and she's wondering why your sex life is bad, and you out there spraying out, laying down in the tub trying to be quiet, jacked up on some Pornhub. You know, it's tough, guys. I'm not saying you're not wrong for doing it, but it's tough, and we're battling that shit. We're better than that. You know, they create these things to weaken us, to beat us down. You think George Washington was jerking off at night, dude? Hell no. That dude was sharpening his wooden teeth and being ready for the next day. And they say he just chopped down one cherry tree. I bet that motherfucker chopped down all of them. Because he showed up. You know, he battled his tough times. Imagine having termites in your teeth and you still got to wake up and smile. It's tough to be a man these days. They don't want us to be a man. But we're not gonna fall down, baby. We're not. We're gonna toe the line, man. Good luck to you out there. But you can check out those where those meetings are at at saa.recovery.org. And it doesn't mean you're a creeper or a weirdo, dude. Trust me, there's the most amazing people you'll meet are in some of these meetings, dude. Businessmen, professionals, heroes, bruh. Heroes. All right, let's hit one more call here on this hot line. Y'all got me feeling fired up. You know what I'm saying? Fired up. I'm about to swim down to Houston and use my body as a sandbag. Again, you can donate. You can text HARVEY to 90999. If you can't find a way to help like that. Take $10 out of your pocket, put it into somebody else's that can help. JJ Watt has a great charity that's online. You can hit them up online. Just Google JJ Watt Charity and see what they're doing to help out. Let's do one more call. This call came in from a gentleman.
Hey, Theo. I just wanted to thank you for the fresh perspective that this past weekend continually reminds me to stay positive and celebrate living. And just had a little baby girl born 3 days ago, healthy and happy and gorgeous as ever. I appreciate you doing the Lord's work on the back of that skullet. Brendan Schaub's right. You're about to take the comedy game to a whole new level. Love you, brother. Take care.
Love you too, man. Congratulations, dude. You got that 3-day-old baby girl, huh? Look at us, man. That's a supportive. You want to support feminists? That's how we do it. We're bringing daughters into the world. You know, we're raising them to be good women, you know, to be confident, to be able to become good mothers. You know, we're trying to lead by example. We might fail at times, but we get back up. And I appreciate that call, man. You know, I really appreciate that call. I appreciate the thank you. Because, yeah, it's tough out here, man. It's tough out here for me. You know, and it's nice when I get to get these calls because, you know, I wish a lot of times that, you know, I'd left out of here to Los Angeles and moved home and had myself a family by now, you know, and had that, you know. And I get, you know, a little bit, you know, a little jealous. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. Makes me feel like I'm a part of something. But yeah, man, little girls are the cutest, dude. My family was never very close, and then my sister had a baby. And when she first had it, I was like, man, I was so angry at her. I'm like, what are you doing? You don't even know about life, or you don't know. I was just so judgmental. And then, man, once I got to know this kid, you know, and she's just the light of my life, and now she has 2 daughters, and, you know, anything they do just brings joy to me. And they brought so much joy to me over the years just by being alive. You know, and little girls are so sweet, man. And so I appreciate you sharing that blessing with us, you know. And that's what it's about, you know. That's what it's about, dude. We're out here trying to help each other out, to remind each other what we can be, boy. We taking this thing. So thank you. I appreciate that call, man. You know, we're trying. We're in this together, dude. We celebrating living. So hit the hotline. Check out YouTube and check out the new set, man. I'm so thankful to Ken Highland, one of my producers who helped put this set together for me, man. Dude, this is cool. We're doing some cool stuff. We got the Patreon. You can check that out. That should be up by Wednesday. And that is patreon.com/Theo Von. And you can support the podcast directly. We're just going to have some small ways you can support and hopefully some other neat ways that people can get involved and become a part of this. But by hitting the hotline, you can become involved. I had a couple more calls on the call list, but I'm not going to get to them because it's 1 a.m. here, and I still got to edit this thing and put it up. But again, my heart goes out to everybody in Texas. And, you know, if you have somebody that's down there, even if they're not in Houston, text them. Just let them know you're thinking about them. You know, let them know that just for a minute that we're not thinking about ourselves. That's what we're trying to do. So we're going to celebrate living, man. Happy birthday to that 3-year-old. And thank you for the callers. And I'll talk to you guys soon, man. Finish my coffee. And this is the Spencer Jacob Grau, Grau band. And that link will be in the YouTube as well.
Celebrate living, celebrate misery. You know that soon we're gonna die.
And as well, if anybody has a topic that they'd like to have us address on the podcast, call in and say, hey, this is a topic suggestion. I'd love to know whatever. I mean, that hotline is open. If you call and mess up or whatever, call back. You know, there's no judgment on that. There's no judgment. And thank you for everybody that called and shared some of their thoughts and feelings. I really appreciate it, man. I really, really do. I'm excited today, man. I'm excited.
Let's have some fun while we all die. Celebrate dark days. Celebrate all your pain. All of your demons exercised.
Close this out right here, man. You guys be good to yourselves. I bet you deserve it. I'm going to try. I'm going to try, man. I'm going to try. No promises, but I'm going to try, man. You guys be good. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great. Hey, sweetheart, here's Theo. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
No!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.